But what, are they around? Maybe in the holding room. Asma Ujang dah? Okay, we will check. Because I also would like to humbly request, if you agree by the House, actually in our room is the editor of Esro Awani. Can we also get him to share his thought? Do you agree?
Well, I'm the naughty boy here, so
would you like
let
the
Datuk Sri Azman Ujang do to continue to proceed.
No one do. If everyone agree, our clerk of the house suggests we have at least break coffee 10 minutes boleh? Better okay, kita bagi breathing space to Datuk Azman Ujang.
informed that our next session for today's roundtable discussion will start in 5 minutes at 4:15 p.m. Thus, we would appreciate if you could take your seats in the conference hall. You could bring along your coffees inside the hall as well. Thank you.
Attention to all distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. Our third session for today's roundtable discussion is about to start. Kindly take your seat in the conference hall. Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, for our third session, we would like to introduce the moderator, Honorable Senator Mr. Khairul Azwan Harun, together with the panelists, Datuk Seri Azman Ujang, Chairman of Bernama, Mr. Philip Golingai, the Star News Editor, and Mr. Stephen Gunn from Malaysia Kini. This is to share their views on the topic entitled Media Engagement in Senate Reform Agenda. For that, we hand over the session to the moderator.
Okay, thank you. Assalamualaikum and a very good evening. Again, my name is Azwan. I'm lucky to be sandwiched by these great media practitioners. Of course, they were being introduced just now. No more introduction. I was told by Encik Ridwan that we should end or stop our session by 5:30 today. Some might need to take a long journey back home. But before I actually start, I must thank and also congratulate number one, Yang Berhormat, Yang Dipertua Dewan Undangan Negeri yang masih lagi setia. They've been with us since morning. It's this roundtable is about Senate reform, but we have the respective state speakers being very, very loyal and committed to this cause. Thank you. Let's give them a round of applause again. Thank you. Of course, to the senators who are still around, some of us have to leave early. But in the morning, Datuk Sri, there were many of us. I think out of the 70, we had almost all of them. They were present in the morning, but after lunch, some also have left. But anyway, this particular session is intended to be an interactive session between these practitioners of communication and, of course, the stakeholders who are the senators and also the speakers of the assemblies, state assemblies, that we are facing with some difficulties. In the past, rakyat always think Dewan Negara, I mean, I don't want to use this term. I know Chairman Yusmadi wouldn't like me to mention this, but I cannot deny that the words around are actually Dewan Negara rubber stamp everything, and senators just wasting taxpayers' money, public fund, and so on and so forth. In fact, tadi Steven jokingly said to me, yalah, senators pun tak buat kerja betul-betul, so people thought that you are just there to buang masa, you know. But what I can share with you, each respective senators in the House currently, they are very, very committed to help the government of the day in enhancing the image of the Dewan Negara. Of course, when I say enhancing the image of Dewan Negara, that includes the strengthening of the parliamentary institution as a whole. So today, Datuk Sri Azman, Steven and Philip, we've received a lot of feedback and opinions as to how we should further restore the good image of Dewan Negara. In fact, we also heard from two speakers, one being the Speaker of the Senate of Canada, and another one was the Deputy Clerk of the House of Representatives of Australia. So we actually compared the success stories and model currently in Canada and in Australia, with the hope that from this second roundtable session, we can come up with a very formidable proposition to the present government or the government of the day, that I borrow the words from Dato' Asfia, Speaker of the State Assembly Sarawak, that the change and reform in Dewan Negara must start today. You cannot wait no more. It must start now. So in fact, he went on to say that kalau boleh, semua ahli senator itu dipilih melalui pilihan raya. That's the way, that's the only way that we could restore people's confidence back in the Dewan Negara. So I stopped there. Now the format is simple. Fellow senators, we're going to listen from each invited speaker today. They are given 15 to 10 minutes to share their views and their thoughts. And then we're going to open for a two-way interactive dialogue and Q&A. So although topic has been given to you much earlier, but will not stop you from saying, although terpaksa pedas sikit pun, it's okay. Is that okay with you, senators all? Yeah? Kalau pendapat yang sedikit pedas pun, I think we should be open to it, you know. So especially Steven has a lot of things to say today. So then without further ado, I'd like to invite Datuk Seri Azman Ujang, Chairman of Bernama, to deliver his thoughts first. Thank you.
Terima kasih Yang Berhormat Chairman. First of all, let me say that thank you very much on my own behalf and on behalf of my two colleagues here for inviting us journalists to this session. I think this is the very first time that we are facing so many Yang Berhormat so close by. Normally I would be in Parliament at the back there or Dewan Undangan Negeri, but this is close up. So I feel humble and honored at the same time. Thank you very much. Yeah. Um, having said that, I would also say that I'm a bit nervous because in front of us here we have Yang Muhammad Datuk Amar Awang Aspia, Speaker of my own state assembly, Sarawak, who some of you might have not known that he has been a speaker for 19 years now, close to 20 years, the longest serving, I think, after Tun Zahir, Dewan Rakyat, former speaker, and 4 years earlier than that, he was deputy speaker. 5 years. So for 24 years, he has been in Sarawak State Assembly. So it's an institution itself, and an encyclopedia, I call it, of our parliamentary practice. To begin with, let me say that as a background, we all know that our Dewan Negara is modeled after the House of Lords in the UK, as we adopted the Westminster style of parliamentary democracy. On hindsight, we sought and obtained independence from Great Britain, but till today, we didn't have our own, perhaps unique way of parliamentary democracy. I could only guess that our founding fathers, in their wisdom, firmly believed that the Westminster model was workable, having stood the test of time, and was dynamic to retain. And who are we to question their wisdom, among other things? But it is very heartening and encouraging to note that after 6 decades, there is now initiatives, or there are now initiatives to gather views from stakeholders and like-minded citizens on some reforms for our Dewan Negara. And as the chairman says just now, as Yang Muhammad, Speaker of Sarawak, suggested that the reforms must begin now, today, in Port Dickson, another famous constituency since the election of Datuk Seri Anwar Ibrahim as its MP. For the purpose of today's discussion, we are looking at how the media perceives the Dewan Negara and in what way reforms can be instituted or implemented. In my view, as a media practitioner of 40 years now, I've been a media practitioner over 40 years. First and foremost, let us make the Dewan Negara as the upper house a more exciting place for the media to want to cover its proceedings. This is a selfish intention. By and large, to media practitioners like us, compared with the Dewan Rakyat across the aisles, the Senate is rather a dull place, news-wise for us, dull place, news-wise. And of course, everyone knows the reason why. The YBs on the other side of the divide are politicians, and many are outspoken, and it is in their nature, or DNA of politicians to be outspoken because they want to impress their voters or constituents. Thus, the Dewan Rakyat debates are more lively and very hot at times, to the point that the speaker would have a hard time to cool down proceedings, especially this present parliament. The use or utterance of unparliamentary words or language is commonplace, even resulting in the eviction of MPs we see now and then. In comparisons, debates in the Dewan Negara are mundane stuff because senators being senators, there's hardly any fireworks. I think they are not controversial in nature. Correct me if I'm wrong. That's why the Dewan Negara hardly hit the headlines in the media, except in the last sitting when the Dewan Negara, which all these years hardly rejected or voted against bills passed by Dewan Rakyat, something unprecedented happened. The Senate stopped the passage of the anti-fake news law. This is the first time in history, I think, that such a thing is happening. History was made. For once, you were not the rubber stamp that people accuse you of. But this happened largely because, in my opinion, of the change of government in Putrajaya. Most of the current senators were appointed by the previous government, biding time till your term or their term expires. What kind of reforms that I, for one, would like to see for the Dewan Negara? How about giving senators more work or tasks to do? Not that you are underworked, but we'd like to see, again, compared with elected MPs, senators are having less work, or some people call it underwork, and there are some articles in the newspapers lately suggesting that, questioning the relevance and all that the chairman says just now. Because senators have no constituencies or electorate to serve or service. Let's give or assign them more work to do, like having select, if not done yet, or special committees to oversee or monitor or regulate some of the key affairs or institutions of the government or of the country. All too often, we hear or read about revelations like cases of abuse of power and poor checks and balance at many government institutions due to a breakdown in the systems in place. One example that I can think of is leakages or wastages of public funds due to very weak or poor check and balance mechanisms. I am not talking about when the bleeding has already happened, but the prevention over it by select committees or whatever to oversee them. Just one last example is a select committee that can be considered comprising of senators to vet or grill, like an interview session for job applicants pertaining to key appointments being made by the government before the appointees could be confirmed. This can be another select committee comprising of senators. I think I stop at that for the moment. Thank you very much.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Datuk Sri Azman. Now I move on to, I think I'll go to my right first, Philip. Sure? Philip, yeah, Philip, I call him Philip. Philip, can you continue? Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, thanks, sir. First of all, thanks for having me here. Okay, I've got good news and I got bad news on the media and Dewan Rakyat, Dewan Negara. Okay, I'll go first with the bad news for the Dewan Negara. Okay, I spoke to my journalist colleague who are covering Parliament about what they think of Dewan Rakyat and Dewan Negara. Okay, most of the journalists in Malaysia, they cover, when they cover Parliament, they only cover Dewan Rakyat and they don't cover Dewan Negara. And then they leave Dewan Negara to Bernama to cover. Okay? And then what's the reason for this? The reason is because they find that the Dewan Negara is not sexy, whereas the Dewan Rakyat is sexy. Sexy as in interesting, not sexy as sexy. Okay? So that's one thing about the thing. And then if you do a Google search on Dewan Negara, actually you get minimum story. The last story I think I saw was Senator Yusmadi chairing this reform committee. But then when you go through, there's not many story. But if you Google Dewan Rakyat, you will see Bung Mokhtar, I don't know why. And then you will see that Najib missed the first session, which he was in court actually. So what I'm saying is there's more news generated by the Dewan Rakyat. Okay? So why the journalists find that the Dewan Rakyat is more sexy than the Dewan Negara? I'll give you 3 reasons. Rightly or wrongly, they see that the Dewan Negara as a rubber stamp. I think it's explained by Dato' Azman that, you know, Dewan Rakyat is where the crucial bills are debated. Then when it's passed, it goes to the Dewan Negara, then it's stamped. Okay, except for maybe fake news. Okay, that's number 1. Then number 2, the Dewan Rakyat consists of MPs who were voted in. Okay, they are voted in and then they represent the voice of the Rakyat. Whereas, I will tone down a bit, whereas the public sees the senator who are in the Dewan Negara as political appointees. And then the one word that one of my colleagues used was a non-complimentary word, was they are on slow motion. Okay, and then there's other words also that they're a bit dinosaur or whatever. Okay, then third reason, the Dewan Rakyat generate exciting stories. For example, one of the big stories that were coming in the last 2-3 weeks was the this allegedly no confident votes against Dr. Mahathir. I think we all know it's not true, but people are still excited. So they don't talk about Dewan Negara, they talk about Dewan Rakyat is because this is where you can maybe kill off a prime minister. Okay, that's That's one reason. Okay, then number two is there's many dramas. People will, they can see a lot of drama in the Dewan Rakyat. Like for example, if just say you're voting on the budget. If the budget fails, it means it's a kind of a vote of no confidence against the Prime Minister, and maybe he's forced to resign, or his cabinet will resign. Okay? And then third is, why it's exciting is because there are characters in the Dewan Rakyat that make the Dewan Rakyat as if it's like a Bollywood movie. Okay, the one I don't have to explain. Okay, that was the bad news. We go to the good news. Okay, this is what my colleague told me, and also something that I noticed. The Dewan Negara, I think, is changing. It's from, just say, it's changing. It's like more, last time it was like older people and etc. And
whose phone is that? Whose phone is that? Somebody's phone.
Okay.
Somebody's phone.
Okay, sorry.
Distraction.
Okay, so what I noticed also, the Dewan Negara is getting to be more exciting because they are dynamic senators that are appointed. I'll just give example. Dynamic senators who are not separuh mati. That's the quote from my colleague. But now we have senators like Yusmadi Yusuf, who is dynamic, and then we have like Pilianke, we have the UMNO youth guy, Dato Ashraf Waji, and then he left already. Oh, okay.
You miss big name, Azwan bro.
Hold on, I haven't finished yet. I have it here. Okay. And then my fellow Sabahan and Adrian Bani Lasimbang, and Datuk Khairul Azwan Harun. Okay? Yeah. Okay. These are senators who know the difference between Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. And then they are active on social media. Okay? That's number one. And number two, a few weeks ago, I had a conversation with Senate Reform Working Committee Chairman, Senator Muhammad Yusmadi Muhammad Yusuf. And then he told me that he's heading this committee, and then he was very excited. He told me that, Phil, we're going to make it equal partner, something like Sabah and Sarawak with Malaya. It's like equal to the Dewan Rakyat, which was what it was supposed to be. I think he can explain more because that's the only thing he told me. He didn't give me a scoop. So my point is, the Dewan Negara is also changing. It's more dynamic people coming in, and once you have dynamic people, the public or the media will be interested in the Dewan Negara. Okay, and here are my suggestions for media strategy in terms of you want to promote your reform. Okay, first of all, first one will be you need to change the public image of the senators, that they are not sexy. So maybe the Dewan Negara communication team, they can engage with the media to do a write-up on hot senators. You all will know who is hot and who's not. Okay, but it's good to generate this kind of topic that at least people will be talking about the Dewan Negara senators. Okay, so it might sound like a light story, but it will change perception, and also it will introduce new breed of senators. Okay, that's number one. Number two, you need the media to discuss why reforming Dewan Negara is important and what reforming the Dewan Negara means. So you need to engage the newspaper. Maybe you have a communication team, you meet the editors, and then you get writers who are exciting to write about what reform means. So, okay, that's number two. Then number three, through the media, you can engage the public via Twitter or Facebook Live. And then from Twitter or Facebook Live, you can engage with the stakeholders, and then you can ask them what kind of reform they want to see. And then the Star has done many of this. And then the advantage of this is you will be engaging younger people. Younger people, maybe they're not really into newspapers or even what, but if you go through Twitter or even maybe Facebook, you can engage them and you can get feedback from them. And then fourth, maybe I'm wrong in this, but maybe the Dewan Rakyat need to be a bit sexy, maybe, because I've seen like in Scotland, they have their own social media team. Maybe you should be on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. because the Senate is just like the newspaper. Its time is in the past. You need to embrace digital media. So roughly, that's what I wanted to say. Thanks.
Okay. Thank you, Phil. This is getting very lively and it's getting more interesting. We heard from Datuk Sri Azman and also Phil words that, you know, it was like, macam, what was the word, Ismadi, you used? Perkataan yang tiada tua.
Oh.
It's rubber stamp, and then dull, boring. Tapi tak apa. You're going to reform Dewan Negara. So thank you, Dr. Sri Azman. Thank you, Phil. Now I move on to my far left, Mr. Stephen Gunn, to also share his thoughts. Silakan.
Thank you. First of all, I need to apologize for the fact that I got quite a severe eye inflammation, so it just created quite sensitive to light. So if I blink too much, then you know that that's because of, you know, it's too sensitive to light. I wanted to come in here wearing dark glasses, but I think that's not very good because I already got a reputation, so. No, it's all right, it's right, it's right. Okay, fine. That's it. I, you know, when Senator Yusmadi asked me to come, that was a few days ago, so I wasn't really quite prepared. And I didn't even realize that this is going to be in Port Dickson. This is quite a far, you know, drive, given my condition, really, making it quite dangerous. But anyway, don't worry about it. I think, you know, you want to talk about reforms, you know, why not go full hog? If we really, you know, want to generate some interest in, among the public. Full hog meaning that perhaps, you know, think about an elected Senate. And that will really, you know, get the public interested. I mean, you know, I really want to, I know that it is well, it may be seen to be pretty of a stretch in that sense. You know, in terms of requiring quite a number of changes in terms of constitution and all that. But I think, you know, just throw it on the table. You may get some reaction and create some public debate on that. And you may want to even go all the way to, you know, adopting the, say, for instance, the United States model in terms of, you know, okay, fair enough, you got 2 senators being elected from each state. Maybe, you know, perhaps 70 odd is a little bit too many. Perhaps cut it down to about 50, another 25 elected from, you know, whoever wants to run to be a senator, for instance. So you got about 50. If you can do that, you know, you can throw it on a table. I'm pretty sure that I can guarantee that there will be a lot of public debate. I wouldn't want to go into, you know, all the reasons why the Senate is so is not generated the kind of attention that it should be. I think you all know why. You know, the rubber stamp is one of them, and Philip is right. Really, when, you know, when it comes to assigning reporters or journalists to cover either the Dewan Rakyat or Dewan Negara, we definitely opt for Dewan Rakyat. I mean, you know, you can talk to the editors will say, look, you know, no need to cover Dewan Negara because of the fact that Bernama is already covering it, and Bernama has the resources to do that. You know, if you happen to miss something interesting, we can always get it from Bernama. And that helps us to cut down our, you know, in terms of our effort to do that. So I think that's really the main problem there in terms of being seen as a rubber stamp. People already sort of expected that there will be no excitement coming from Dewan Rakyat, Dewan Negara, sorry. So I think, you know, that will require a lot more public engagement, not just with the media, but to the public itself. I think, and I cannot think of ways of doing that. You may go into Facebook, Twitter and all that, but I think it will require a certain kind of social animal to be able to have that kind of public engagement, because not everyone can do that. I can understand it, but I think if you can generate the kind of public attention by saying that, look, the Senate is talking about making reforms and all that, and go to the public, and definitely, the media organization will want to help out in terms of trying to get, feedback from the public, from our readers. If the Senate, the Reform Committee especially, is willing to, go to that extent. And you can even propose some of the suggestions, some of the ideas that how reforms should be carried out. And then, whether the government will accept it is up to them, really. The other thing about public engagement with journalists is with the media, it is, there's good and bad to it, I think. Number one is, you will have to, if you want to get the kind of reaction that a lot of the politicians in the Dewan Rakyat get, then you would need to say something interesting, something sexy. Otherwise, journalists would not pick it up. But then, of course, when you do that, you will have to watch what you say. Sometimes you say the wrong thing, it can generate quite a lot of attention. And that's maybe not what you want. In that sense, you need to be a little bit more careful. I can just cite one, more recent example regarding DAP Setjen and Finance Minister Lim Guan Yin, when he used the word declare war in one of his press statements. It was a press statement, really. It was a press statement in Chinese. That was translated by us. And I think, good thing about Guan Yin is that, he doesn't jump up and down. And I think that I respect him for that, in the sense that at least he knows where the boundary is. He won't come to us and say, how come you're reporting this and all that, making it a big issue. He considered that he made a mistake, more or less a mistake, and he made an amendment to that. So he came up with a corrected statement, and that was it. Of course, you have the other political parties making a big issue of it, but that's politics, really. And just like, the way, people make an issue out of, say, for instance, the survey that was done by, by Kairu. So it's one of those things. It's all politics. We all know that. But at the end of the day, really, it's public perception. So I guess you are well aware of that. Well, I mean, when we talk about Senate reforms, even, among us, among journalists itself, we are also talking about reforms. Some of you may not know about this, but the editors and publishers and all that, as well as journalists, are talking about setting up a media council, which allows us the industry to self-regulate ourselves. I know it's a big jump, and I think that's we decide. It is the whole idea of the media council is that it allows the government to repeal some of the restrictive laws, like, say, for instance, the Printing Presses and Publication Act, some of the major sections within the Communication and Multimedia Act and all that. Some of the laws has been used to restrict the media, to and of course, that will impact on press freedom. The media council will be independent. It will be depending on how the discussion goes. It will be made up of representatives from from the media, from the civil society, a few other groups and all that, and they will handle complaints from the public. So if there's any complaints, instead of going to court, they'll go to the media council first. Of course, the court is still an option. That will be the last option. And we all know that if people go to court, it is a very expensive affair. Not everyone can actually, they're able to sue somebody, especially a media organization. And sometimes the media organization may not be, in a position to defend themselves because they are not very rich either. And when you go to court, when you start suing people and all that, the people who actually come out who make a lot of money is not, the suer and the suee, but it's always lawyers who are making the money. And you can ask our friend over here. So anyway, really, that will come. Hopefully, that will be an issue that can be resolved soon. Hopefully by this year. And when that happens, again, you see among the media itself, we have come together to form a media council, which is independent, and hopefully the government will, as a parallel effort, repeal all the laws that has been restricting the media. So in that sense, that will go to the Senate, I presume, when all is done, and hopefully you'll do the right thing. Thank you very much.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Datuk Sri Azman. Thank you, Philip Kolingai, and thank you, Stephen Gunn. The panelists have been very, very punctual, adhering to the time limit that I've given to them, and they have actually shared their very insightful comments and opinions, very, very enlightening indeed, and frank as well. But I must also inform many of us today that in this room, of course, I've been sandwiched by these great media practitioners in our country, but we do have also other media reps in this hall. We have Aswat from Astro Awani, yeah? And do we have some more media reps? Can you please raise your hand? Or Aswat saja yang ada, ya? Okay, right. So meaning that we're gonna move on to Q&A and interactive. So it's no holds barred session. Say what you like, but of course try to control sikit emotion lah. Yeah. So let's start with YB Ngah. Silakan.
Mr. Moderator, I want to ask the panelists whether the negative perception of the Dewan Negara has been unwittingly contributed by the press itself in focusing on the melodramatic gymnastics in the Dewan Rakyat, and in the process made Dewan Negara a sacrificial lamb on the altar to appease the press readership. Secondly, what is the focus of the press? Is it on the rhetorics and the theatrics of the Dewan Rakyat, or do they are really interested in the substance of the debate, as evidenced in some of the debates in the Dewan Negara, which is for the good of the country?
Okay, thank you, YB Ngah. So let's start with Datuk Sri Azman Rujang.
Thank you for the question. It's a good question. I think by and large, the media thrives on what we call good stories. If the story is not the quality of the news value of it, because the competition for space, for example, in newspaper, radio, television, is quite stiff. So only the stuff or the stories that we consider of high news value will get the space lah. For example, in the print media, is in journalism we call if a dog bites a man, it's no news. But if a man bites a dog, it's news. that kind of thing. Yeah? So something uncanny or unusual. So, but as far as Bernama is concerned, we cover fairly New Dewan Negara, all the lively debates and the good quality debates, but they do not get printed in the, for example, we still depend on newspaper, most of us, print media, to size things up, as a benchmark for how fair or how much Dewan Negara news is being reported. We still depend on newspapers mostly. But the newspapers, they have other stories to print. So they find these stories not of high quality value lah. In the nilai berita dia tak berapa tinggi, so they just don't print it. So that's the reason. But I know lots of good stuff also comes out from senators during the debate. But my two friends like to use the word sexy. They're not sexy enough. I think that's the reason. Thank you very much.
Dato' Azman, I'd just like to add on sikit. So sexy, how sexy actually you prefer?
I think I leave that to Valley School because he uses the word a lot.
All
yeah.
right. Okay, Philip.
Okay, Senator, that's a really good question. Actually, you made a very good point. But the thing is, actually, it depends on our reader also. The readers are not that interested also sometimes in a very intellectual kind of conversation or discussion. They're because I run the Star Online, I can see which story is very popular and which story is not popular. Story about like maybe Bung shouting at Teresa Kok is hot. That's like out of 10 readers, no, just say 10 in your family, I think maybe 7 will be talking about that during dinner. But then something like is very clever. And then Senator Yusmadi also sometimes scold me that, hey, you all write about trash only, and you don't write about intellectualism, etc., etc., etc. Because the problem also, the reader, even you check with your family, but maybe you come from an intellectual family, out of 10 in your family, how many will be interested in something very deep? So maybe only 2 or 3. So sometimes I fault the interest of the public or the reader. Just to answer your question. Thanks.
I think it's a great question. I think that is something that the media will have to grapple with all the time. It is not to say that we are perfect, and I think just like everybody else, we do discuss issues like that, in terms of, how come we covered this story and not that story, whether we are actually contributing to the process of democracy, and whether we are actually, doing a public service by, say, for instance, omission of some of the debates that goes on in Dewan Negara. As Philip said, there are pressures there in terms of, Dato' Azman also said the same thing in terms of increasingly, like it or not, when you are online, you can easily, how to put it, measure how popular a certain story is. That put a lot of pressure on a lot of people. That you want your story to be widely read, and to make your story widely read, there has to be, you have to find ways to make it interesting. And if politicians are saying something that's not so interesting, it will be somehow being put on lower priority, and sometimes it doesn't get picked up. I think it's a lot of that is two ways. Also, I think it'd be good also for the politician to, if it is not being picked up, write something down and send it out. If you think that whatever that the points that you argue, whatever forums, whether it's in Dewan Negara or Dewan Rakyat, write it down and send it out. It may attract some attention from the editors. And that happens by some politicians. I know that they are quite diligent in coming up with press statements and all that. Sometimes a summary of what they have said in Parliament. So I think that is something that hopefully will remedy some of the problems. But I admit, really, I think the media is a good thing that just like healthy criticism of politicians, there should be healthy criticism of journalists as well. And I think we should be open to that. And I think the Media Council would hopefully be one way to handle that. The complaints that you have, the complaints that the public have, that will be hopefully be listened to by a independent committee, and they can make decisions whether a particular media organization has somehow not doing its job, or somehow violated the editorial ethics, and that they could be punished for it, either made to apologize or pay a fine or something like that. So I think hopefully through that process we can be better, rather than right now the media organization is just basically relying on the government to monitor them. We don't have to monitor it ourselves. It's basically if the government decides to take action, well, we know exactly where the line is. And I think that's wrong, really. I think it's, at the end of the day, journalists will have to, make amends themselves, rather than, rather than being, being confined by the law and allowing the law to decide how they should behave.
Okay, Can I ask a supplementary question?
Huh?
Can I ask a supplementary question? To the
am I the speaker of the house, or that I can block question? No, okay. Yes. One question from webinar again.
Thank you very much. May we know from the panelists whether the press is prepared to extend a penitent gesture towards the Dewan Negara by engaging the Dewan Negara in more interactive sort of engagements, and in the process extract some of the news or information that you think will help to put the Dewan Negara in better light. Thank you.
Dr. Osman?
Like I said earlier, we go for the news. If we have our own way of evaluating what is news and what's not news. I think most of the stuff that are not reported is to us not news now. The nilai berita tu is what I would like to repeat. If it makes news, then definitely you get a lot of space or airtime. But that means if you want to say something that you want to be reported, you give a thought to it. You do your homework also. What will be news to the media? I mean, we can engage on this more closely later, what news means. So there are a lot of MPs or even other personalities who are always in the news because they know what news is. This is quite difficult to explain in a few minutes, but I think that's as much as I can say.
Okay,
yeah.
Thank you, Dr. Sri Azman. I hope that answered webinar. We need to move on. But before that, oftentimes, I must also share with you, based on my experience, politicians expect some help from media practitioners. We try to use, to put in extra efforts in like sending out our print statement or fax over or email, and we actually also shared images of our good work that we've done in our, for example, our constituency. But again, it is to no avail. It didn't come out. So some have actually said to me, or maybe media must have got a very special list of certain politicians that they just like to promote, as opposed to accept whoever that actually send the stories to the practitioners.
I guess,
but never mind. I will not expect you to answer.
I guess I'm Ashwat from Mr. Awani. I guess that's where the sexiness comes in.
Okay, no, tak apa. I will not expect you to answer that now. We're going to listen from other senators. But in this last session, I also like to invite one of our distinguished State Assembly speakers, from their experience handling State Assembly, your expectation on media to cover your sitting, for example, or the work of your fellow assemblymen in the state. So do you have any thought on that you want to highlight to our panelists? Silakan.
Yeah, I will first respond as a member of parliament. I think basically the parliamentarian have this complaint against the media for 12 hours of sitting a day, from 10 p.m. or very often to 10 a.m. to 10 p.m. But the media will report that 5 minutes of exchange of vulgar words in the assembly, because that is, I mean, in the parliament, that will probably be news, like I mentioned by Dr. Sri just now. So, in fact, so it creates a wrong picture to the public, as if members of parliament, for that matter, probably Senate, did nothing else but except to quarrel with each other. But I suppose all those substantive presentation of facts are not news. So I'm just wondering whether it can also be news if for any subject matter, say a little quote from the proposal and a little quote from the opposition and what the day one finally decide. I think with this summary of news, it still can get readership. I still remember years ago, one DAP member left the party, brought a group of non-members. You know what the news media put? Earthquake in DAP. I was the chairman of Para DAP. What nonsense. This is false. I mean, totally presenting a total inaccurate news. So I just wonder the media, whether in order to be more healthy in this, we call developing the Malaysian mind, yes, short and sweet, but at least some substantive news, rather than all this inverted commas rubbish that is being churned out by one or two in that 5 minutes moment of we call anger or expression. If I can.
It's what you call rubbish that makes news. So something very predictable, very ordinary is no longer news to us. So especially in this age, thank you. Yeah.
Philip, Jeff, something to add on?
Good observation. Just I answer it based on history. In the good old days, maybe 20 years ago or even 10 years ago, the Star had more space. And then our Dewan Rakyat coverage was very good, actually. We even put in the boring stuff, which is actually the big stuff. But I think now newspapers are shrinking and therefore less space. Like I remember last time our Dewan Rakyat page, maybe it was 2 or 3 pages. Now it's only 1 page. And then I think also the problem also with the media is we cater too much to our readers. That's what the readers want, and then, yeah. So maybe because online has more space or infinite space, your suggestion is good.
Mr. Chairman,
I
would like to express my gratitude to Yang Berbahagia, Datuk Seri Azman Ujang, Philip and Stephen for the sharp observation and advice. Basically, I think there are 5 areas that the Dewan Rakyat, the Dewan Negara may have to look into. 1, sensationalism. There must be something sensational for the press to report. If it is too mundane, too boring, no matter how intellectual it may be, it doesn't do well with the press. Second, we have to look into which story sells best. If this story sells best, then it may attract the attention of the journalists. Number 3, the boys in the Dewan Rakyat, they like to call press conference, whereas those in the Senate do not tend to call for press conferences. Number 4, I think it's time maybe for the Dewan Rakyat to establish a media unit to liaise with the press and to highlight which news or which events they would like to be highlighted by the media. Number 5, I think this is important. The Dewan Negara is seen to be too politically correct. That is why Donald Trump won the election. He was not politically correct. The others were all too politically correct. So when you are very politically correct, you don't attract news. So these are the 5 areas I think that essentially make the press covers the Dewan Rakyat more the Dewan Negara. And the Dewan Negara has to examine. But I really value the advice of experienced journalists like you for coming here and giving your observation. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Asfia. Thank you. Yeah.
Well said.
What he has just said are meant for our bahagian PR and also the senators that we need to look into some new media strategy that need to be in place. Okay. So, yep. Kejap, Datuk Umar kejap. Kita bagi Datuk Umar dulu. Ya. Okay.
Sebentar saja. Moderator, saya pandang bahawa perception orang terhadap Parlimen dan Senate ada berkaitan dengan cultural aspect of the two houses. In the sense that kalau kita cakap ada budaya Parlimen tu dengan budaya Senate, nampak dia punya perbezaan dia. Perbezaan dia in sense that Parlimen ni is something that normally controversial things are being put up. Very make it more very interesting, sensational. And people like sensational things rather than something that's mundane. On the other hand, Senate pula, they got this perception, probably still ringing in the air tu. Senators dulu lah. Who are the senators? They were appointed people who have lost something, who were dead woods, or just to repay what they have done, or just put them there. And the resultant effect of this is long-ranging. So people kata, tak ada maruah, no value lah. So I'm not interested. After all, who are they? They are all the... But things have changed. I'm sure things have changed. There are characters, the integrity, the intelligence, the mental capacity. I think they have gone very much better off. I see the youngsters and lawyers and talking, not like the old days, the old guru, old politicians, and then they talk. I think this bad.
Yep.
That's
Thank you, Dr. Omar. Agree. Stephen, do you have something to add on to what Dr. Omar has said?
Not exactly. I think the last two speakers have really pointed out, some of the main, the issues that's been raised, in this particular session. I think it's really very succinct in that sense. I think it's just, not looking in terms of that, whether it's from the senator's point of view or the journalist's point of view. I think both of us are invested. It was mentioned about the fact that often, yes, we do, somehow attracted to some of the, the wild remarks that have been made, especially in Dewan Rakyat. But, on a day when there is no wild remarks made, we do report great news. So I think, again, on the other side, I think it'd be good if the parliamentarians can control themselves, control their, and not being drawn into that kind of, slanderous attacks or whatever it is, and which will get reported by the journalists. And so I think it takes both sides. I think I'm glad to hear, from the senators some of the key points that's been raised, and again, I'm not defending the media, really. I'm here to listen as well, just like all of you. And I think, we'll see how we can, you can help us and we can help you, just what Najib said. Definitely we want to see, to make sure that, democracy will be enhanced in Malaysia.
Okay. I guess senators, we need perhaps reporters or journalists, experienced ones, to also serve in the upper house. They could also advise us on communication skill and strategy. Yeah. Do you want to say something?
Can I try to see from different perspective?
Yeah.
We are senator. We attach to an institution called Dewan Negara. Dewan Negara may be called as a democratic institution which was formed for a certain purpose. And media is an institution, or people may say forced state, have a role in the same, for the same purpose. And that purpose was mentioned, at least for one legitimate purpose, was mentioned in the last part of Stephen Gunn's explanation just now. He used the word democracy. Let's say if I were to put in that context, yeah, let's say in that context, that somehow where things cross paths. Unless you are saying all these institutions have different purpose, everything are very situational, can be navigated from to the left to the right. But assuming it stands on certain very fundamental normative purpose, and that normative purpose is actually to do certain thing for democracy, and let's say it relates to the for the purpose of rakyat lah. Okay, I use the word. I use this word for reason. For the second time, let's say the role is to deliver public goods. In other words, manfaat rakyat. Let's say manfaat rakyat. Media has a role to play. That's why the very idea I tried to understand the context that what Stephen said about Majlis media. In fact, that was my first speech, Stephen, when I was appointed. It was my first speech. In fact, I said why we to do that, blah, 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 blah. But of course, it's not getting the media attention. So I put a challenge to me. So sometimes the challenge I put to me is actually sometimes it go to the very mechanic process, like the very underrating words called interaction and assess. So I think maybe, not to say that we are lacking news value, no lacking that, sometimes it's go to the very mundane aspect, like there's no interaction. This is the way I look at it, because the communication now is no more vertical, no more horizontal. The key word is interaction. I think maybe sometimes you mention me more because I always disturb you, Philip. If I don't disturb you, I don't interact with you, maybe you don't know me. So I have to. So the reason why I said this in context, because I have to say in this 2019, the existence of Malaysia Kini, I believe with certain normative purpose. The existence of Bernama, which I think Datuk Suhaimi was here, he involved our senator, Datuk Suhaimi, I think is very instrumental in the establishment of Bernama. At least it was confided to me, one of the journalists. So unless we are saying here the discussion
TV, Bernama TV, not Bernama.
Sorry?
That
Bernama TV, yeah, you're right. So you're correct me wrong. So what I'm trying to say, unless we are saying the discourse here, the role of media and Senate doesn't stand on a very clear normative context, then we are talking about something situational. Then that situational can be discussed from either way. Sexiness, yes, in what context? Sensational, yes, in what context? So if, let's say, I put the context, let's say, the very agitations of our senators here to form together, and the very agitation of everyone, the rakyat here post 9 May, is actually to make sure the delivery of public goods to be better. So let's say, assuming that's a normative, so my question to the panel is that, what kind of relationship, that is the question, that we senator supposed to have with the media? I'm looking for a very collaborative, I always use this word, muafakat, that will have a very simulation interaction. Of course, the very sexiness is not very much what they say, it's something that we, the media and the senator, we want it for the country. It's not very much what the media thinks and what we think, but it's what we, media, collaborate together, in the words of muafakat, because I think things will never happen in silo. Maybe I expect some siloness here, so I would expect explanation from Phillips and Dato' Azman or Stephen. How does we create a very healthy relationship, synergistic, between this institution and your institution, which is have a very major role to play. It was proven for the last 60 years to benefit our country in that context.
Hello, thank you very much. This, I think more engagements lah. Face-to-face, more engagements, and if you have something big brewing coming, and then you brief the media well ahead of it, so that when the thing actually happens on that day, we know the background and the rakyat knows the background. I set an example. In Parliament next month, the Minister of Economic Affairs is going to table the white paper on FELDA. He is now beginning to engage us, his office, beginning to engage the media, to write a series of stories to condition the minds of the rakyat, because this is going to be I think a bombshell kind of white paper, because Pelda is a lot of crises and scandals and all this. So in the next 1 or 2 weeks, there will be a series of stories on Pelda, what's the moving forward, the transformation, the turnaround of Pelda. So by the same token, if you have some big bills to come up, and then you condition the mind of the editors, and you personal touch is also very important. I think at the end of the day, the conflict here arises because of what we perceive as news and what senators or newsmakers perceive as news. It's two different things. Sometimes what you perceive as news value is not news value to the media. I would like to cite, before I end this answer, two personalities in the country who, throughout the years that I have been in the business, are the darlings of the media. One is Tun Dr. Mahathir. I have followed him for 22 years overseas in his first stint as Prime Minister. Even the foreign media will be there. I said, why are you here? We want to get some juicy quotes from your Prime Minister. And he knows, he doesn't disappoint them. For example, with due respect, when we covered Dr. Mahathir first time around when he was Prime Minister, at the end of when he gives a press conference, for example, we would gather, banyak sangat nak tulis ni, apa yang kita nak highlight, nah? So it's the riddle with all kinds of newsworthy things that he will say. For example, when we cover Pak Lah, we would gather, apa story, with due respect to him, because he doesn't really know what the media really want in terms of the news value of what we say. Another great newsmaker in the country, but he's retired long time ago, is Dato' Haris Saleh, Tan Sri Haris Saleh. I was for 4 or 5 years in Sabah. Every time he opens his mouth, is good story. I think Douglas Primus can testify to that, in Muhammad. Because he knows it's sensational, but he knows what the media want. That's why the media likes him very much. So this is just 2 examples lah. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Datuk George, sekejap before I allow you, kita minta Saudara Aswad dari Astro Awani, you want to extend or add on to what Datuk Azman had said? Sexy attributes.
Okay, well, for Astro Awani, we are 24 hours news channel in Malaysia. So if you talk about space, so we have huge, humongous inventory. One. And plus, we have to juggle those two together, which is the numbers, in which, you know, like what Philip and the rest of the panel has talked about, the numbers meaning where we work based on analytics. So based on what people read and what people want. That's number one. So we have to juggle, we have to be balanced. How should I say, 50-50? No, it's more into 60-40. 60 we go to numbers, 40% we focus on the credibility. This is where you coming in. We want to talk about the long form and how to the explainer and the expander of one particular issues. This is where the analysis comes in. But when it comes to numbers wise, because we play on analytics, we have those predictive analytics dashboard. In half an hour, this particular story of one person, alat kemaluan tersepit celah pintu, will go spike huge up, skyrocket. So we have to play that story. One. But at the same time, we have to focus on what needs to be done for the country. What kind of narrative, the new narrative that we have to instill in the people's mind. I'll give you an example. Let's say we talk about Speaker Don Sarawak. The focus is always about the seriousness of Dato' Amar. But when you talk to him personally, this is where the talk show comes in. Then you get to see the real him. You know, the other side of Dato' Amar that actually can, you know, oh, this particular man can really, really go deep into the hearts and mind of the people. So we have to juggle those two together. The short bite and also the long form comes hand in hand. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Aswad. Thank you. Phil?
Okay, you mentioned analytics. I'm looking through the STAR punya analytics. guess what's the number one story now? The number one story now is the dog ate my homework, says Najib's lawyer. That's the reason why they postponed his case, because the dog, I think he injured himself. The second story is about this baby that the mother forgot. The plane was flying. Yeah, see, you all know. So technically, that's the two big stories. Yeah, the 10th story is Ronaldo visiting TMJ in Johor.
So no chance for us lah, because Ronaldo doesn't know us, definitely. Dr. George, silakan.
I think today we learned a few things. One is that Dewan Negara, the Senate, is boring. And the other one here is because of the Dewan Negara is boring because they are rubber stamp. And the other one here is the Parliament is more interesting because of a few firecrackers. Now, let us come to seriously speaking here. Government has got the business of serving the people, isn't it? And not simply to the media. They don't really go and make the media happy about. So it's up to the media to translate what actually the government has done, whether they want to say something good about it or the other way around. And whether the Dewan Negara is boring, I think we have got a few senators here. Maybe we can listen from them. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Dr. George. We are nearing to 5:30. I can only allow 3 more senators to, So of course the lady senator will be the last to ask.
Wabi. I have a question to all senators.
Huh?
I have a question to all senators, by the way. Satu saja, because when it comes to transparency, sometimes we wonder, how did you get into this position?
Can we reply you in emails?
WhatsApp.
No, okay. Tak apa, we will answer you at the end of before the end of the session. Now, I have 3 more slots for 3 more senators. So I hope Fahriah will speak. Women will have more things to say. So I'll give you more time to say at the last session before we end. The last, definitely, I promise you. Okay, Wabi.
Okay, I experienced in 2 houses. One is the state of Selangor. The other one is just 2 days in the Dewan Negara. It's really the debate in Dewan Negara is a bit dull because we're not allowed to cross, we're not allowed to fight.
Not allowed.
Yeah, I mean the way we debate in Dewan Negara is compared in Dewan Rakyat or Dewan Negeri. It's really for us. I mean, because I always ask what's news. Actually, people want a good news, quality news, fair news. I think because previously we don't have enough fair news, that's why we're checking it here. But now I think we give more fair news to everybody. We can access news from everybody. But really, I test what's news really. When I put in very serious news in my social media, very few follow. When I said Merapu, when I come to Merapu, said married more than one, polygamy, then I put something news. Oh, so many viewers. So this is a problem for us to give a quality news, because the news people they are more interested in the news that is more popular,
controversial,
provocative. So this is a really dilemma for us in Dewan Negara.
Okay, thank you, Wabi. Okay, let's move on. Before Fahriah, are there any male senators? Huh?
One.
Dr. Paul.
Okay, I'm quite interested what Stephen Gan mentioned about my media council. They seem to be having a problem there. But how could we senators assist you, and perhaps you give us some coverage later on in assisting you? One. to sensationalization or something big. Perhaps like today's session, why don't you put speakers of Dewan Undang Negeri Malaysia joins Dewan Negara in reformasi small discussion.
Do you want to answer to that, Stephen? Huh?
When I mentioned about the fact that you help me, I help you, that's more like a joke already. I think that was a great headline in terms of the fact that it's something that if you're going to report this session, that would be something to be looking at. But I think in general, really, it is a problem of not so much the media, it's all a problem of society. I think, like it or not, at the end of the day, we are generally attracted to sensational news. If you don't rely on media, you have your own Facebook, as was mentioned before. You know that what kind of news stories or what kind of messages that you post will attract more readers. You can, as Philip mentioned, you can see the top 10 stories. You know instantly what kind of stories would attract readers. I think at the end of the day, really, again, it's up to the media to decide whether this is the road that they want to go down or whether it's not. I think it is a problem for us. As well. I think should we go down the sensationalist road, or should we also make sure that, apart from also making sure that we do not lose our readership, but also serve the role of as a platform to make sure that their major debates, issues are being discussed in order that at the end of the day, when people go to the ballot box, they can make an informed choice. So how we can enhance democracy per se. I believe in it. Though of course sometimes we do make wrong choices, but I think we need to grapple with that. At the end of the day, as I said, really, it's not just the media, but I think in general, it's the people who would be naturally attracted to sensationalism. Whether we want to pander to it, it's really up to different media organizations. Some media organizations will go down that road, some won't, some wouldn't. So I think, but we need to encourage that the media should also should take cognizance of all that, and hopefully, that we would serve the interests of democracy. But it is a difficult choice, and we need to among the media itself, we need to discuss that.
Okay, thank you. So kita akan tamat, tapi sebelum tu saya nak jemput Senator Fahariah mewakili gender wanita. You have time to before we end.
Thank you, Chairman. I thought women has to be like always women first, but this time around it's like women the last. I just want to have very simple questions, which is I believe it has been discussed widely, and I think it's been discussed worldwidely on combating gender stereotyping and sexism in the media. Because as we can see, when it comes to the coverage of the women's leader in particular, not many women's leaders are being highlighted in the media. Philip, just now you were like mentioning a list of good senators, but I believe in our Dewan Negara we have a lot more women senators, which is very good, but it's not been in the list of your list, and it's not even been highlighted by the media. I think media play quite a very important role to promote a female leadership positions. As we can see now, women is only been associated. Well, I mean, we've been discussing about this, about sexism, about the hypeness of the news, but women has always been associated with something more like beauty and physical, I shall say. Even like say if the person is like if you want to interview a leader, she has to be pretty, she has to be look nice in the media, she has to be look nice in the paper. That's one of the media people told me. And as we can see recently when there's an LGBT rally, most of the pictures that been highlighted or distributed is all about a woman, a lady who holding a card with the words of pussy, excuse me, about pussy, tits and all, you know. But I believe during the rally there's a lot of men who's doing, I mean, holding a very interesting cards, and you know, like with any other, like, you know, but it's only when women is associated with those kind of like negative, and it's more like sensational rather than leadership. So yeah, I mean, I would like to hear more like opinions or suggestions on how are we going to do, how can media can help to promote more women's leaderships. And yeah, thank you.
Okay, silakan, Philip.
Yeah, you have a very good point. That's why maybe we should work together to do a list of like the female senators who matter. So maybe Star can do a story. Maybe I'll talk to you and other people to give a suggestion who are the interesting female MPs. Thanks.
Thank you very much. I think before we actually conclude, let me just invite every speaker to conclude again, say in 2 minutes each. Silakan, Datuk Sri Razman dulu.
Thank you for this. We learned a lot as well, this feedback. For example, Senator, the last one, her point is to portray women in the proper light. We are only recording, or we are only reporting what's happened. We don't create on our own volition or initiative. It's up to you. The ball is at your feet. If you want the media to report you in there, you have to create the substance for it. Yeah, that's my point.
I think come back to your statements. I think ramai sebenarnya the leaders, women's leaders, comparing to the men, we are almost equivalent. I believe so, but it's only been highlighted the men rather than the female.
Can you cite a few examples?
For example,
that has not been reported that you have done or women have done that have not been.
For example, like in the Senate debate, for example, the Dewan Negara, we have like ladies, the women senator and the male senators debate a lot of things, which is, I think, in the Dewan, kalau you dengar, sometimes the women senator has came up with a very good idea, some suggestions, and a good debate, but it was not highlighted in the media. In fact, the man has more coverage compared to the women. So those kind of things that I'm talking about, it's not about like promoting one leader, kind of like individual, no. I'm talking about the so-called like, I mean, I don't want to say this, but it's very cliche about just gender equality kind of things, but I think it has been debated, I mean, all over the world, we're talking about the sexisms and, you know, stereotyping women in the media.
You didn't give specific examples that have not been reported that you feel strongly that should have been reported. If you follow up.
Okay, Datuk Sri. Yeah. So, Philip, your conclusion?
Okay, mine will be very just 1 or 2 words. Okay. Main complaint or main thing is that why senators can't get publicity, or why Dewan Negara has no publicity. My advice is, I use a Sabah slang, kita kupi-kupi dulu. Meaning, why don't you call or make friends with the journalists and then go for coffee with them, talk to them, kupi-kupi dulu, and I'm very sure there'll be story. Itu saja.
Personal touch, huh?
Okay. So the last one, Stephen, your conclusion?
I think it's been a great session. I'm happy to hear that this is not just a one-way thing. It's great that on this side we're getting our fair share of criticism as well, and I think it's good to hear that. There are a lot of things that I'm aware of, but I think it's a great start. Really, hopefully, as I said, we are really partners for democracy. Really, I think we see how we can help each other out, and making sure that at the end of the day, the rakyat will gain. So I think let's see how we can better understand the situation. Thanks.
Okay, so thank you to the panelists, the great minds, great thinkers, the big names in our media world. So let's join me to give them a round of a big applause. Yeah. So I think that's all from this session. I pass back to our MC. Thank you. Assalamualaikum.
Thank you to the moderator and fellow panelists for the enlightening sharing session.
Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, as the saying goes, to every beginning there is an ending. And now we have reached the end of the event. Thus, we seek your permission to continue the event in Bahasa. Majlis merakamkan setinggi-tinggi penghargaan dan ucapan terima kasih kepada yang berbahagia, ahli-ahli yang berhormat, datuk-datuk, datin-datin, rakan-rakan media, tuan-tuan dan puan-puan yang hadir pada hari ini. Kami selaku pengacara majlis pada hari ini ingin memohon ampun dan maaf di atas segala kekhilafan sepanjang pengacaraan kami. Sekian dahulu dari kami. Terima kasih dan Assalamualaikum.